All right, stay with me. The Brooklyn Nets might be the coolest looking franchise in the NBA, with the least amount to show for it. Nice arena, cool jerseys, celebrities on the court, and somehow the same amount of NBA championship as I do. And that's the thing about the Nets. They don't just lose, they lose with style. They're the only franchise that can assemble three Hall of Famers, scare the entire league, and still leave you with nothing but a trivia question and a highlight about somebody's toe. Today, we're talking about why the Brooklyn Nets can't figure out and why their entire history is basically a legacy of shortcuts. Because the Nets have always tried to skip the boring part. And every time you skip steps in the NBA, the league make you pay interest. Quick profile. The franchise was established in 1967, originally as the New Jersey American in the ABA, and then the New York Nets, then the New Jersey Nets, and now the Brooklyn Nets. 4 names, 2 states, multiple cities. It basically a witness protection program with a shot clock. No NBA championship, but 2 ABA titles in the 70s, which is like winning a championship in a league that the NBA pretends doesn't exist until it needs content for NBA TV. And where are they in 2026? They're in what I call strategic hibernation. A mountain of draft picks, a lot of flexibility, and no real face of the franchise since the KD/Kyrie era blew up. The Nets are basically a saving account right now, but we've seen them get impatient before. The Nets story is a weird from the jump. They started as the New Jersey Americans, then they became the New York Nets. And they have Dr. J, Julius Erving. In the ABA, they were kings. 2 titles, and they were legit. But here's the first thing the Nets do, what the Nets always do. They get to the NBA doorway, and they have to pay a fee. When the ABA merged with the NBA, the Nets had to pay the Knicks a massive territory invasion fee, $4.8 million, just to exist in the New York market space. And to afford it, they had to sell Dr. J to the Sixers. Imagine starting with your NBA life by selling your best player just to pay rent. That's not a rebuild, that's a foreclosure. And after that, they moved back to New Jersey. And for lots of years, the Nets were basically the team you forgot exists until the playoff record reminds you. Empty seats, little buzz. They're trying to escape the Knicks' shadow, but they don't become their own thing either. Then the early 2000s happens. Jason Kidd, back-to-back finals in 2002 and 2003. And here's the heartbreak. They run into Shaq and Kobe Lakers, then the Tim Duncan Spurs. Not because they were trash, because their timing was awful. The Nets were early to a modern NBA style. Pace, ball, movement, versatility, but they show up before the league handed out trophies for it. And then 2012, big glow up, new arena, Barclays Center, Jay-Z's attached to the marketing, black and white minimalism. The Nets didn't just move, they rebranded into a lifestyle. But here's the issue. You can't Photoshop a championship. Now, let's talk about those almost teams that was near misses. See, 2002 to 2003, the Jason Kidd window. Those finals teams were real. Kidd made everybody better. But the Nets never had the top end star power that the Lakers and Spurs had. They were a great system team in the era where you needed a super weapon. And that's the theme. When Brooklyn finally got super weapons later, they couldn't keep them on the floor. 2021, the toe on the line team. The moment the Brooklyn almost owned the league. Now we get to the peak of the Nets mythology. KD, Kyrie, Harden. They call it scary hours. And for a brief moment, it actually was. In the history of the NBA, there has never been a greater short story than the 2021 Brooklyn Nets. The most talented scoring trio ever assembled. Play only 16 games together. 16. That's not a big three era, that's a limited series. But in those games, they went 13-3. They didn't just win, they toyed with people. Harden was the conductor, Kyrie was the artist, and KD was the ultimate weapon. And you couldn't double team anyone because the open guy was also a Hall of Famer. Then the problem with Scary Hour is eventually you gotta wake up. Game 1 versus Milwaukee, Harden hamstring goes 43 seconds in. Game 4, Kyrie lands wrong and his ankle gives out. Suddenly the big three becomes a big one. And even then, KD almost did it alone. Game 7, he hit the shot that everybody thinks is the dagger, but his toe is on the line. It's a 2, not a 3. 1 inch of rubber turned a Brooklyn parade into a Brooklyn funeral. And after that inch, the chemistry evaporated, the ego took over, and the era that was supposed to change the NBA forever became nothing more than a trivia question. Now let's talk about why the Nets keep ending up here. Because Brooklyn's greatest skill isn't drafting, it's donating future All-NBA players to other franchises. In 2012, the Nets traded a first-round pick for Gerald Wallace, trying to convince Darren Williams to stay. That pick becomes the number 6 selection, and that selection becomes Damian Lillard. So yeah, the Nets eventually traded Damian Lillard for a declining veteran. And even when they had picks, they sometimes swung for potential in the exact draft where the league hands out future stars. And that's how you end up watching someone else, franchise player, while you're explaining to your fan base why upside matters. And then we arrive at the decision that defines Brooklyn's modern suffering. The trade that didn't just hurt the Nets, it built a rival. 2013. The Nets went relevance immediately. So they trade a haul of first round picks and a pick swap for a aging Kevin Garnett and an aging Paul Pierce. KG is 37. Pierce is 36. And the Nets basically mortgaged a decade for 1 year of headline buzz. That trade becomes infamous because those Nets picks helped Boston land cornerstone stars, including the assets that lead to Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, being part of a Boston title core. So yes, the Nets didn't just lose a trade, they financed the Celtics. Then comes the superstar shortcut. KD and Kyrie sign. Harden joins. On paper, it's unbeatable. In real life, injuries, trade requests, off-court chaos, and the big three ends up playing only 16 games. And when Harden wants out, they trade for Ben Simmons. And for a minute, fans told themselves, maybe this can work. But Simmons doesn't become the fix, he becomes the symbol. Because the Nets keep trying to solve the identity with another shortcut. Let's talk ownership. Mikhail Brozovic shows up like a billionaire in a casino. He promised a title in 5 years. He said, win in 5 years or I'll get married. And even if he jokes that if they don't win, he'll punish himself by getting married, they spent a ridiculous amount in luxury tax. They tried to brute force a championship. And they learn what every fan learns eventually. You can't buy chemistry. You can't buy timing. You definitely can't buy health. Then Joe Tsai takes over the KD and Kyrie era. And instead of celebrating wins, he spends half his ownership dealing with PR fires, trade demands, and organizational whiplash. The Nets aren't a basketball team sometimes. They're a group project where the smartest people refuse to meet up. Alright, here's the core. Why can't the Nets figure it out? 3 reasons. 1, New York is a Knicks town. Always has been. And because the Nets know that, they overcompensate. They don't build patiently, they chase moments. 2, the Nets treat team building like a tech setup. 2, The Nets treat team building like a tech startup. Acquires talent, pivot fast, go viral, but dynasty aren't built on hype cycles. They built on stability. And 3, and the biggest thing, the Nets don't have a Nets way. They lack an identity. They have eras, they have aesthetics, they have marketing, but they don't have a basketball identity that survives roster changes. Until they stop trying to be the Knicks, but a little bit cooler, with the cooler jerseys, with the cooler court, all the black and the white. Okay, like the star players, they only last for a year or two there, then they leave. They're always going to be one toe away. Now, to be fair, 2026 might be the first time Brooklyn actually has a path. They got flexibility, they got picks, they've got a chance to do the boring part, the hard part, the part they always skip. But here's the real question. Will they stay patient, or will they get impatient and trade all for the next disgruntled superstar? Because that's the Brooklyn addiction, the shortcut. Because, stay with me, the Nets are always close, always flashy, always one move away. But until they build something real, they keep ending the same way. Not champions, not contenders, just almost.